Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB bikini pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Hello, everyone. Today we are speaking with a woman who lives and breathes all things competing, and she uses this passion in her competition prep and posing coaching business. Welcome to the show, Katie Kopfle. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you again for being here. And, I'm really happy that we're doing this. I've got a lot I want to talk to you about, but I always love to ask, what is one thing you do or a ritual you have right before your heel hits the stage?
So I think just kind of relax myself, take a deep breath, try and have fun. Remember that this is, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, and the hard work is done, and just take a breath.
Absolutely. So, one of the things that I think is really important to talk about, and it's something that is a subject that usually comes up behind the scenes in a lot of competitors' lives and not always out in the open. So for you, competing actually was a catalyst for you in improving your life after having eating disorders throughout high school and college, right?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
hmm
So what exactly was going on at those times in your life?
Yeah. So basically, it kind of started, I would say, like end of high school and then all through college. I always was an athlete. Like I played tennis. I was always very, very tiny. Like ask anybody, I was super small. And not necessarily because I wasn't eating. I just always, I guess, was tiny and athletic. And then it really started, I guess I can remember senior year of high school and then into college. I just, I kind of became like fixated on being so small, and then I started eating less for that reason. And I'm sure a lot of girls can relate to that,
Mm-hmm.
especially as you get into college, and it's more about you care more about how you look, and it's social media and all of that stuff was getting bigger, and it's just a lot of pressure. So it kind of just built, and that was when I was first starting to get into the gym. But when I say that, I didn't know what I was doing. I would go, I kind of just did it. I did the cardio. I did just kind of to burn calories. Like a lot of girls do that don't know any better. Um, and so all through college, pretty much, I was getting smaller and smaller. And then obviously at that time, I was going out and I was drinking a lot, and then not eating, and it just, yeah, so it really, really affected me. So that was, I would say, a good 6, 7 years of my life. I was living that way.
And when did you
Um,
realize that was not the best way to live?
so I probably probably towards the end, I studied health promotion in college. Go figure. Um, it was, so that was kind of like exercise science. Um, had some nutrition in there, nutrition classes, but that was when I really started getting into lifting more seriously, like towards the end of my college years. And then that's when I graduated, I decided to become certified as a personal trainer, and then I started working for gyms, and that's kind of where that took off.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it was kind of around that time where I realized kind of just like, what are you doing to yourself, And so um, I can remember for years during college, I would basically eat nothing. Like I would eat as little fat as I could. Like I can remember eating, 400 or 500 calories a day.
Wow.
Um, And just like, yeah, it's horrific. Looking back, I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I felt horrible all the time, but I was so tiny. And like my friends would even say things to me. My mom would even say things to me. She even, took me to a doctor at one point, a doctor's like just my family doctor, and she was like, they brought it up, both of them, and I was like, oh, I brushed it off, it's whatever. And I can remember the doctor was telling me, give me a list of foods, and it was like very high calorie foods, like cheese was on there and all these things, and she's telling me, I want you to eat more of these things, Katie. And so it like got to that point, like nobody really knew how bad it was. And I kind of just brushed it off, but it was really, really bad. So that was all through college. And then, like I said, when I was getting ready to graduate, was when I looked at my personal trainer certification. So then I got more serious into lifting. And then that's when I found actually reverse dieting. And I did a lot of research on my own. And so I know a lot about that just from kind of doing it on myself, just to get out of that horrible, like, lifestyle that I was in for years. So I basically reverse dieted myself. And then after that, when I was in a good spot, is when I decided to compete. So that was my first show was 2016. So I had been reverse dieting for a while before then. But that was, I was in a great spot, and I had been lifting for a while. Seriously, like I really, really became passionate about it because, like I told you before, it was something a lot of people, that's what I hate about this sport. A lot of people, they have this bad opinion of it, and they say, oh, it can cause eating disorders and it causes horrible habits like that. Well, guess what? For some people, it is the opposite. It gets you out of that, and it gets you to focus on being strong. Like I was so focused on being strong and lifting more in the gym, and I loved the way that I was getting muscle and loved the way that looked, as opposed to when I was under 100 pounds, skin and bones. So I don't like when so many people have this horrible opinion of competing. And like, yes, I do know that it can contribute to some bad disordered eating habits. But I know for a lot of people, myself included, it helped me get out of those habits. So that's what I really love about it. And that's why I'm so passionate about it, is because it kind of it helped me out of that time in my life and gave me something to focus on. And that's kind of how it all started.
Wow,
I
that's
know that
amazing.
was a super long answer.
No, I love it. That's exactly like what I was hoping you would share, like all of that. And I'm so glad that you did. And I really appreciate you being willing to even say, there is that negativity that sometimes comes into the competing world of, oh, well, competing causes these problems. And I think a lot of people who follow me or know kind of what I do, they'll understand that. I believe that competing can um, exacerbate the problems if we don't have them solved beforehand, really. Or in your case, given that it was almost like going to an opposite end of the spectrum, it's different. You were able to work your way out of it in a positive way, and you reverse dieted for so long to get yourself to a healthy place. And so it was almost like a natural progression. And I think that sometimes what happens is that negative perception comes from something that's already within us, or it's perceived that way because like the average person doesn't eat healthy. The average person doesn't
Right.
take care of their bodies. So of course, when then someone who's a competitor and they're tracking their food, or they're eating a lot of protein or a lot of veggies or a lot of carbs, the average person might be like, that's strange, right? Like that's not right. Like they should eat
Right.
like chocolate and cake and cookies all the time.
For sure. So I definitely think there's both ends of that spectrum and that stereotype, and that's why it's such like a touchy subject, is because like you said, so many people deal with those habits, and obviously some people they're bigger issues than others. Like some people maybe just have little issues with it, and some people just have full blown, it's something they're going to deal with their whole life. Um,
Mm.
so I think that's really something that people should try and separate from competing, eating disorders. Yes, it can cause them, but it can also, like in my case, it can help you out of that and save you from that.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And I think that when people are nearing the end of a prep, for example, things can sometimes get so food focused, which will then bring about
Hmm.
thought patterns and habits that can create disordered eating, not necessarily eating disorders, but definitely disordered eating, or at least a negative relationship with food. And those are things that the good news is they can be solved and resolved, and you can be even better. And then you go into your next prep feeling absolutely amazing, or you go into your improvement season enjoying your life, and you don't have those issues. And so, I think sometimes people wonder, especially for someone who was in your situation where you were really trying to be small and skin and bones, and then now into bodybuilding, how do you go about how do you go about making sure that your habits and your relationship with food stays healthy and positive and continues to fuel you in a healthy way?
Right. And that's a great question. Because I think a lot of people deal with this and they don't necessarily talk about it. Like it's definitely something it's almost like an undercurrent in this industry, that a lot of people just don't talk about, but it's there. So eating disorders are tricky. And I've even thought about, going and back to school and becoming more certified and helping people with these, just because I think it's such an issue, with a lot of people. But I think the reason it's so difficult is because it's different than anything else. Like food surrounds us all the time, pretty
Mhm.
much. It's different from somebody with another kind of disorder, like say you're an alcoholic or you have a drug addiction. It's very different. I don't want to say it's harder, but we have to eat to live. So say somebody is a drug addict, what do they tell them to do? They just avoid those situations. They go to rehab or whatever the case is, and then they avoid it and avoid people who would bring that into their life. But food, you can't avoid food. It's there all the time. So that's why it's so difficult, I think, for people, and why so many people struggle with it, is because it's constantly just, it's something that has to be a part of our life.
Mhm.
So you
Sure.
kind of, it's almost like you're dealing with it forever. I'm not saying that you would have an eating disorder forever, but it's something that you might always have to be aware of.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I think you do need to recognize that. And I know some people, like I'm a coach, and I know some, I hear a lot of stories just of different girls who had no problem with their eating was fine. They were perfect, they were considered normal, so to speak.
Mhm.
And then they did a prep, did a show, and now they are finding themselves with these disordered eating habits, like binge eating or whatever the case is. And they had no problem before. So those are cases where it can cause the disordered eating. But that's just something that I think you need to be smart and respect yourself enough to recognize when that's happening and
Mhm.
maybe take a step back. Um, because it can definitely become a vicious cycle. And I see this so much where people just, they do a prep and they love the way they look, and they're getting lean and shredded, and they do well, and then they're in their off season, and they're kind of still having these thoughts and these habits, and then they rush back into a prep, and it's kind of just a cycle. And I don't think I think you need to be smart and kind of recognize when that's happening.
Yes, and when it does happen, do something about it. And under
Exactly.
right, like, and I always like to say it's not like this sport, we all know goes so much deeper than surface level, yet many of us aren't addressing it deeper than surface level, which has been my mission for so long, is to build more than just a body. And I think that if someone on here is listening and you're going like, I'm definitely having issues, I have been binging, or I have been finding myself having negative thoughts about the food that I'm eating or around food in general, or I'm struggling with the way that I'm looking now in my improvement season, or I can't seem to find the balance that I'm looking for. I'm either 110% or I'm nothing. And if those are the kind of thoughts that are going
Mhm.
through your mind, making you feel less than enough or less than who you desire to be, then reach out for help. And I mean, obviously, I'm a good person to talk to. This is exactly what I do. I love to do it. But there are tons of resources you can get outside of, me, obviously, as a competitor. I know what it's like. I've been there and I've studied a lot of this. So I get it. But at the same time, regardless, if you're listening and you need help, just reach out, even if it's just to talk to someone who's been there or to talk to
Mhm.
a family member. Like, bring other people into your solution finding, because the thing about disordered eating or eating disorders or negative relationship with self, body, food, goals, etc., it's all very ill defined as problems, which means there's no clear path to a solution, and there's not always a clear solution. So sometimes I have clients who come to me and they're like, oh my gosh, like I keep waking up in the middle of the night to eat and I can't stop and it feels like it's someone else. So I could give one of them a solution and it works really well. And then I could give another one a different solution and it works really well. But if I had given them the same solution, maybe it wouldn't have worked for one and it would have worked for the other. And
Mhm.
so this is something where, similarly, as a coach in the physique world as well, there's certain things that do and do not work for certain people. So if you're willing to invest in working on your physique, should also be willing to invest in working on your mindset, because that's what's going to be there for you in the long haul. And it does have a massive, massive impact on the success you experience in a prep or in an improvement season, or even just phasing out of competing altogether.
For sure, definitely. And I agree with 100% what all you said. And there's so many resources out there. So don't let yourself, don't be embarrassed by it. Don't, because it does happen to so many people. Like I said, it's just not talked about. I can tell you so many people suffer with this that they just don't talk, and that you wouldn't necessarily think suffer from these habits or these thoughts or these whatever, or have done in the past. They do. So don't feel ashamed by it or feel like you can't talk to anybody about it.
I love that. No, it's really empowering to hear you say that, because you've come out of it. You've come out on the other side. So have I. And it's a nice thing to know, like, okay, I can actually do something about this. And what's crazy to me, honestly, like so many girls don't actually realize they have a problem. And like I'll be
Mhm.
backstage and the stories I'm hearing, I'm just like, oh, this is not a good sign. Like this is not a good start. But eventually we become aware, and having conversations like this that we're having, Katie, it's like that's what gets people's mind going, oh shoot, like that's why I'm feeling this way, or that's why I've been
Mhm.
like. So I really appreciate that we've touched on that. And I of course want to ask you about something you're doing right now, which is actually prepping yourself. And I am fascinated by athletes who prep themselves. I'm just like so amazed. So how has this experience been different than past experiences?
Yes, and I'm so excited. I'm glad you brought that up. So honestly, this has been life changing for me.
Uh,
Just so I've done. Let's see. So I think I've done 8 shows in total. I've done 3 pro shows last year. So this will be my 4th pro show. Obviously, I've had a coach for all of them, but I just have not had good experiences with coaches. I think so many people can relate to this. And me being a coach myself, um, I hear tons of stories, girls coming to me with their old coaches and just horror stories. And I've been there myself, where I'm the type of person, if I'm getting a coach, I'm gonna trust you. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna follow the plan to a T. That's how I am. I think that's how everybody should be when you hire a coach. But at that same time, when you do hire a coach, you need to do your research and you need to be smart about it. They're not forcing you to do anything. You're free of your own will. So I also don't like when people come back and they say, well, this coach messed me up. And well, you did choose to work with them. They didn't force anything on you, but I do think there's a lot of poor, uneducated, ignorant coaches out there, just to be straight up.
Mm.
Um, and it's really sad and scary to see. So I've been through all that. Um, like I said, I've always known I could do it. And, I went through a lot of health issues this past year that I've talked a little bit about. But just a lot of shit that I've went through. And, dealing with all of that, I did not think I was going to compete again. Like I really didn't. I had no idea if that happened, when it would be. Like it just seemed like such a foreign concept. Like I was so scared to be honest.
Mm.
So after going through all of that and finally feeling better, I just, I thought this was the perfect time. I know my body very well at this point. I know what to do. I know how to coach, and coach well. So I figured, why not? Let's just go for it. So yeah, I basically just started prepping myself back in March. So it's been a while that I've been on prep technically. I hadn't picked a show. I just started dieting, started my cardio, slowly was cutting down, and then kind of was just seeing where I'm at. And so I really didn't decide on a show until I think it was about 2 weeks ago, maybe. We decided on Tampa. So yeah, when I got to that, I was just kind of like, when I feel ready, when I feel like I'm lean enough, I'm going to jump in a show. I didn't want to put pressure on myself
Mhm.
because, like I said, this prep was for me. This was just to prove that I could get back up there. I could place dead last and be completely happy just to be back up there because I love this sport. I love doing it, and it broke my heart that I didn't. It was a horrible time in my life. I was depressed, just from not being able to train like I wanted. Just lots of different issues. I had some nerve issues, things like that limited my training. Just some scary stuff. So I didn't think I'd be able to do it again. So just being able to that means more to me than any placing I could ever get. So that's kind of, I figured it was a perfect time to prep myself for this show. Yeah, so I'm just excited, and it's just crazy to think about we're here. But it's definitely been a huge learning experience for myself. Like I've learned more prepping myself than you can learn in any textbook, working with anybody else. I have learned so much
Wow.
doing this on my own. Yeah.
That's so crazy too, because you've gotten to experience working with coaches, you're a coach yourself, and you had some health troubles that, of course, then caused some, I guess, nervousness or fear going into
Mhm.
another prep. So, um, what was it? So, I mean, I know before this past off season, which was about 9 months, you would only take like 1 to 2 months off between shows, which wasn't ever enough for you to fully like restore your
Mhm.
body. So, what types of health issues did you think came from competing, that you are now proactive about making sure they don't arise again?
Yeah, so that I'm sure that added to it. I'm the type of person, I love doing this. I'm very competitive. I've always been that way ever since I started. My first show was July 2016. I fell in love with it. I've maybe taken a few months off at max, at most, which is, guys, let me tell you, that is not enough. Why do you think bodybuilders and all those people, they take, guys take months and months and months off, just because we put our bodies through so much. And I think we get such tunnel vision. I
Mhm.
know for me, I just get so focused. Like I would do anything to look my best, to be competitive. So I think we just kind of forget how much we actually put our bodies through. That's not necessarily normal, quote unquote. So I think just that maybe added to it, but basically it all came from, I had really bad, my spine was misaligned very, very badly. Come to find out, I was just having a lot of different, like I said, nervous system issues. So it basically started after my last show last year. Just, I was getting really bad headaches, like vertigo, blurry vision for a while, just crazy stuff. And I had no idea. I was terrified to go in the gym. Um, it was hard to tell. Yeah, you couldn't really tell anybody because it's one of those things where me being a coach myself and a trainer and anybody that's in the fitness industry and supposed to be looked as a role model, and we're supposed to be like the epitome of health, and everybody looks at us as they aim for that, and we're so healthy. And I was having all these issues and I didn't know where it came from, didn't know how to fix it. Was seeing all these doctors, had MRIs, was in the hospital for a while, went to the ER a few times. So that made it really hard because I felt like I was almost faking it, and I had to put on this brave face. And I still had clients. I still, nobody really knew the extent of it besides my few close friends and my family. And it's tough when something like that happens to somebody who's supposed to be in the top, the peak of their health, and it's tough. So that was a very, very dark, tough time in my life last year, and then beginning of this year. It was really hard. I didn't really tell many people about it. I didn't really know what was going on, to be honest, fully myself until recently. So I figured out started going to a chiropractor actually, took x-rays. My spine was very, very, my spine and my neck were just very misaligned, just years and years of not paying attention to it, not, taking recovery seriously like I should have probably. Um, so yeah, that started causing a lot of nerve issues with me. I was having a lot of joint pain, like it was hard to work out. And then it started giving me really bad anxiety on top of that. Like I started getting panic attacks, stuff like that. So just crazy stuff, y'all. So it was bad. So I think, not taking as much time off as I should, that probably added to it. I'm thinking just your body, we're tough on our bodies. When you diet, obviously you're not getting all the nutrients that you should or you normally would. So your body can't recover as well or as quickly as normal. You just put a lot of stress on your body, whether it's physical stress, emotional stress, mental, all of that. So I think just over time that added to it, and kind of just, excuse my French, shit hit the fan all at once. So yeah, so that was that. And that was, like I said, that started last year, and then it took me months to figure out what exactly. So I've been seeing a chiropractor, started with him back in February, and I've been seeing him a lot, and I'm religious about it now. Like, y'all go, if you see one, that's awesome. If you don't, please go and just start. Like he basically say, he gave me my life back, and I owe it to him, and I'm just so grateful that I found out what was wrong, and all these crazy things that were happening was from what they were, and now I'm able to do this again. So definitely just take care of yourself and your body. It's more, I hear all these things about, self-care, self-love is like this kind of movement nowadays, which I'm all about, but I think that means more than just, getting your nails done or just
bubble baths and face
loving
masks.
bubble baths, right? And more. Don't get me wrong, I love a good bubble bath or massage or whatever it is, facial. And of course, self-love, meaning being happy with yourself at all stages and confident, but also just loving yourself and respecting yourself and your body enough to be smart and to take your recovery and take your rest seriously. I know I didn't really do that. So that probably added to all the problems. I feel like a lot of people don't necessarily realize how important it is recovery and taking time off, just to let your body kind of just be, like, just get back to its normal, so to speak, its normal state that it's just, you're just are. And I think a lot of people don't really focus on that these days. It's always like, go, go, go. Like, what's the next step? We're always looking to do more. And we're always comparing ourselves with other people. And, oh my gosh, that person's doing this. And you feel like you need to be rushed with your timeline as far as like when to start prep or when to do all these things. And I think we just need to be sometimes.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that so much. I could not agree more. And that you brought up a lot of things that I really wanted to touch on with you as well. So, I kind of want to start with like with prepping yourself and knowing everything
Mm-hmm.
now that you need to take the time off, or you had those health issues arise. Obviously, as a pro, the circuit demands that you are almost constantly competing or you're winning shows
Mm-hmm.
to qualify for the Olympia, or maybe even just develop some prestige to be invited to the Arnold, or I guess accepted when you apply. So what are you going to do differently to make sure that your body is in a good spot?
Yeah, so that's definitely a tough. It's tough nowadays. People just compete literally year round, especially bikini. It seems like people are just always competing. And I definitely think you can do it in a there's a right way and a wrong way, I think. So you kind of have to treat year round. You can't really be off ever. And I don't want to say off as in, yes, you need an off season, but it's not necessarily off. Um, you should be planning, have in mind and have a plan as far as the year ahead and what you're going to do next. Because all of these like people who yo-yo all the time and they'll prep, people will come to me and they'll say, okay, Katie, I want to do a 12-week prep. It's 12 weeks out. I want to be shredded. I don't ever want my calories to drop super low. I don't want to do tons of cardio. Let's do it. And I'm kind of like, well, it doesn't really work like that. You look at the top pros, they are in good shape. I mean, they always have a plan year round. That's kind of what it takes. You have to, you can't just do a prep and then you shut your brain off until the next time when you prep. It's kind of like you need to have a plan year round and say, okay, for these months, I'm going to let my body kind of heal itself. I'm going to build my metabolism back up. I'm going to reverse diet. I'm going to let myself just kind of be, and then I'm going to start prep again. So I think doing it that way, you're able to do these shows back to back, and kind of do more throughout the year. But you can really hurt yourself and get into trouble when you prep super hard for a show, then all of a sudden afterwards, then you're out of prep mode until you realize, oh my goodness, I'm going to start again. And then you prep super hard. So it's more so, I know people talk about this a lot, making it a lifestyle, but it really is, which nobody wants to hear. Nobody wants to hear that. But
It's
it's
true.
kind of, I say more just having a plan. Not that you can't enjoy yourself. I definitely think you need to obviously gain some weight back for girls. Like I said, let your body just be, and your hormones need to re-regulate. That's a super important thing for females. But always just having a plan, I think, can help
Yeah.
with that.
I like that. Like really scheduling that in and taking that into consideration before just jumping into
Yeah,
all these things. So,
right. But listening at the same time, listening to your body and say if you want to do a show, but your body's just not having it, or you feel like after a few months you still need to reverse diet and get your metabolism up, and you don't want to prep again, then don't. Nobody's forcing you to. That's what I like about the pro circuit, is that there's not this pressure to do for the national shows. There's only 5 or 6 a year where you have to be ready at a certain date to get your pro card. Whereas pro shows are a year, so that's what I like about it. It kind of takes that pressure off.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And that way you could bring your absolute best and feel your absolute best in that
Mhm.
process, or as best as you can. And
For
that's
sure.
a good thing for sure, like you said. And so um you also mentioned having that plan, but still being willing to let your body rest and reset. And, you brought up how sometimes these girls will come to you wanting to achieve like some crazy results really, really fast, usually based on, I think, what they see on social media. You brought up comparison. And
Mhm.
a lot of competitors, especially with social media, tend to play that comparison game. Like how much food is that person eating? How much cardio are they doing? How
Oh
fast
my goodness.
did they take an off season? Like, should I use a weight? All these crazy things. So, we start questioning ourselves, or there's a lot of competitors who almost are like, do your own thing, but also this is what I'm doing. And then it makes other people potentially subconsciously think maybe I should be doing that, or they start questioning what they're being told to do. So, of course, this can make people go down that unfortunate rabbit hole, and then of course put in this mindset of I can do that too, without considering that the factors are different. So what do you usually tell your clients who get caught up in that comparison game, or what would you recommend to the people listening who find that they do go down that rabbit hole?
So comparison, I will say, is one of the worst things you can do. If somebody were to ask say a first time competitor came to me and they asked my biggest advice, I would say you cannot compare yourself to anybody else. I know it's easier said than done, but there are so many different factors that go into each person, and the sport is it's very individual. And I think that's what makes it so great, but it's easy, like you said, to look at other people, especially with social media. You look at somebody else and you say, oh my gosh, they're only doing 10 minutes of cardio a week and they're eating over 3,000 calories and they're still leaning out and they're 2 weeks out from a show. I will tell you right now that is very, very, very rare. Um, and if that is, they most likely have a genetically fast metabolism already. And they have probably reverse dieted themselves to get to that point. Like I was talking about the playing year round, that's what a lot of people don't understand is that these top pros and these people that do that, that's how they're able to do that. They put in the work when you're not prepping. They put in the work. It's year round work. It's not like you do 12 weeks and then you're off and then the next time comes around. It's constant work, and they've built their bodies and their metabolism up to that point where they're able to do that and still lean on and still do shows back to back and feel good because they put in that work up to that point. And I think a lot of, especially first time competitors, they see that on social media and they don't fully understand that it's a process and it does take a while to get there. And guess what? Sometimes, yes, your calories will have to drop low, depending on the person. Sometimes your cardio, yes, we'll have to give you some more cardio leading into a show. But that's where you need to be smart, choosing your coach and doing your research and trusting your gut is a big thing too. If it feels like this is wrong and you don't feel like you should be doing this, maybe you need to trust your intuition with that. And maybe it is too much for the coach to tell you to do. So a lot of different factors go into it, definitely. And I see this a lot as a coach, just different girls that come to me. And that's what I tell them is you cannot compare yourself. Um, Social media is a great tool, but it's also a great distraction, and it can definitely be very, very toxic if you let it. So if you find yourself, if you're one of those people that it's when you're prepping and you just can't stop thinking about other people, or oh my goodness, this girl looks better than me and she's doing the same show, maybe just don't get on it. Maybe just kind of shut it off and focus on you. Focus on what you can control, which is giving your absolute best effort. And everybody else, you can't control that. So it shouldn't matter.
Mm, yeah, totally. I love that a lot. I think becoming aware of like why someone's post might be triggering those thoughts within you, and then being willing to like shine a light on that darkness and be like, oh, this is
Mm-hmm.
actually like how I feel about myself, or oh, I realize like I'm not in a healthy place mentally to do this, or maybe oh, I'm like using this as fulfillment from other voids in my life. Like just becoming really aware,
Exactly.
right? Like sometimes it
Mm-hmm.
reveals to us the things we don't want to see in painful ways, but it ends up being something really important and empowering for our whole entire journey.
Exactly. I love that self-awareness is huge.
Mm.
And it's a really tough thing, but I think once you master that, that changes your life completely.
Yeah, totally. I could not agree more, seriously. And you not only help competitors, but you also help lifestyle clients. So, what do you think or what do you see as the main difference between coaching girls to the stage versus doing lifestyle coaching?
So, obviously lifestyle is mainly just weight loss or people, I even have girls coming to me that want to put on muscle, put on some weight, or just get in a healthy routine and some workouts. Whereas the obviously competition prep is very strict. It's a strict specific goal to get on stage and look a certain way. Um, so I think the main difference is just the level of commitment um, that people have. And I've even suggest sometimes people come to me and they want to prep for a show and we get started. And I just, after a little bit, I say, hey, I just don't think this is right for you. Have you thought about just doing lifestyle? And then they switch to just a lifestyle client or vice versa. If they're just in it to be healthy, and then I've say, have you ever thought about competing? So it's kind of a level of commitment, I think.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, I love both of them equally. There's perks to both, but I definitely love the when people are super serious about it and they're committed, and I see the hard work they put in, and they want to make me proud. Like I love that. That's
Hmm.
that's my favorite part is when somebody comes to me and they're just wanting a change, wanting a healthy change in their life, and then I start seeing a shift and I see them make it a lifestyle, and I see them get really into it, and they'll start tagging me in pictures and they'll say, oh look, I saw a new vein today or I saw a new muscle or whatever it is, and it's like that's what makes me so happy. I love that more than anything. Is just when you almost see that switch in people, like you see the light click on and they make it part of their life and they fall in love with it like I did. Like I love that so much.
That is so cool. I really like how you put that
Hmm.
too. And as a coach yourself, you have said and you mentioned you had some experiences that were not so great with other coaches. So, what happened? Like, what were some of the red flags that maybe you can see in retrospect but didn't see at the time, so others listening can maybe look out for that?
For sure. That's so. This is a big, I think, issue in this industry, and it's kind of looked down upon, I think, and people don't really talk about it. Um, but a lot of coaches will, they don't necessarily, I don't want to say they don't know what they're doing, but they've either prepped themselves, like they've done shows themselves, or they are a pro themselves, where they've been coached by somebody, and then they think, okay, well, now I can be a coach. And what makes a good coach is you need to have one, the education, the science behind it to know what you're doing. And two, each person's very, very individual and you need to treat each person that way. And you can't just throw out a generic plan at each of your clients, the same exact plan and expect the same results. Like you said before, it may work for some people and some people it won't work. So the sport is very, very individual. Um, and just, I've just had coaches that either, everything was the same, like the same meal plan, or they, weren't responsive at all. I hear this a lot too with girls, which blows my mind. They won't hear back from their coach for weeks at a time. They'll send them a check-in, don't hear back. Not even a, you look good, or, no, you don't look good. Like nothing. And that blows my mind, because these people are busting their butts and they're putting in all this work for you or for themselves, and they put their trust in guidance, and you're supposed to be helping them, and you can't even give them the courtesy to respond to their email. So that blows my mind. I hear that a lot, is non-responsiveness of coaches, or taking too long, or even peak week or show day, they don't hear from their coach at all, which that blows my mind too.
That's so crazy.
Right. So I try to make sure that I'm very, very communicative. Anything my girls need, if they have any questions, they can always ask me. And so I would say those are the main complaints. I've also had coaches that they try and push things on you, whether that be enhancing drugs, whether that be pushed too hard and are manipulative about it. And I think a lot of coaches do that because they know that athletes these days, they'll do just about anything. Certain athletes to get there, to either get their pro card, to do well at a show, to place first, to be competitive, they'll do just about anything. So I think a lot of coaches will manipulate people and kind of take advantage of that. And I've had that happen to me, because I'm the type of person that am very competitive. And when I'm focused on a goal, I'll do whatever it takes. If you're going to tell me, do 3 hours cardio a day, I'll do it. Not saying I've done that, but it's been pretty close. So just pushed me too hard, knowing that I would do it, because that's the kind of athlete that I am. And I think a lot of people are like that. Unfortunately, coaches take advantage of that, because they see people and they think, oh, they'll be a good client for me. They'll make me look good. I'm going to push them, and I've had a coach tell me basically how they figured out my starting, my meal plan and my calories were just to give me the lowest calories they could and see if I could handle it. Straight up said that.
Gosh.
So of course I did it, because that's the kind of person and athlete that I am, is I'm going to do it. And I'm not going to complain, and I'm just going to suck it up. But it is so sad to hear these stories, because I can relate to that so much. So that's kind of why I'm out to change the coaching standard. And there's a few coaches that I really, really admire and I look up to almost as role models. And I take a lot of business inspiration from. And they are just their clients just speak the world of them. And then there's also a lot, I'm not going to name any names obviously, but there's also a lot, even top coaches, that you would be surprised that I hear of. Clients have come to me and told me things about them, or they used to work with them, just horror stories about these top name coaches. So it goes both ways. So when you find a coach that you fully trust and you have results with, and you work well with and you're happy with, then stick with them.
Yes.
It's almost like a good manicurist or a good hairstylist. Like when you find a good one, you stick with them.
Oh, I like that. That's a really great way to put it too. Like it's like a good hairstylist. That's so funny.
Yes, because they're so hard to find. So hold on to them for real.
Yeah, and don't get distracted. I guess it's almost like that meme of that guy looking back at the girl while he's holding hand with his girlfriend. It's like, don't let that be you. Don't let you be so happy with your coach, and then you see someone post about their amazing coach that you're like, oh, let me go get some of that. Then you realize, oh, the grass wasn't greener. And I did like a coaches week series that many people listening are gonna be like, yeah, I loved it, oh my god, it was the best.
That was awesome.
Thank you. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I loved interviewing every single coach I talked to, And then I was disappointed that I got some messages about some coaches. And I was like, there's nothing I can do about it though, because
Yeah,
it's like some people have really terrible experiences with a coach, and then another person on the same team has an amazing experience. And that also blows my
exactly.
mind. I get it, sometimes it's the athlete, but also sometimes it is the coach.
Hmm.
And I'm like, how do you not treat every single athlete the same?
Yeah, and I kind of think you'll never really know that. Like
Right.
there definitely are some people who it's absolutely the athlete, and they're never going to be happy with it, not following the plan, and they're always, there are definitely some athletes like that. And then it could also be the coach, but I think you'll never really know that. So it's kind of, again, going back to, you have to just trust your gut. And if you find somebody, like you said, don't get distracted by other people and what they're achieving with their coach, because it might not be the same if you were with that same coach.
Mm,
Um, people, I've definitely heard two very different um, experiences with the same exact coach, and it's kind of weird, but it happens. I've
yeah.
heard that a lot, where some people love them, some people absolutely cannot say worse things about them. So you'll
Mm,
never really know if it's the coach or the athlete, but at that point, you kind of just have to go off of your own experience, I think, in that situation, and how they treat you, and your personal experience up to that point, and kind of not listen to those other people, because you never know what they're saying either. You know what I mean? Like, you never know what their experience was. And so I think in that situation, you kind of just have to trust your gut and your own experience with them up to that point.
yeah, I really, really like that, the way you put that too, because you might even have a teammate who's not having an amazing experience,
Hmm.
and that shouldn't necessarily change how you feel. Now, I think that there are sometimes, I need to be very careful sometimes with how I say certain things.
Yeah.
Okay, like moral standards, right? Like we all have our own like moral code that we follow. And I
Hmm.
think that if I heard that that moral code mine was being broken or stepped on by someone I trusted and loved and cared about and who was my coach, and they treated someone else in a way that wasn't aligned with that moral code, then I might feel differently. And if I had real tangible proof of that, I would probably feel like, okay, I'm going to go with this girl because I saw what happened. Because that's like an association thing, being
Right.
aligned with who you're working with. So I think that there's, like you said, there's a lot of different factors and you will never really know. So we got to just do what's best for us. And you're prepping yourself. You're prepping other athletes, which is super cool. And you are a women's fitness specialist. You are NASM certified personal trainer. You did go to school for health. What was it? Health studies, health promotion.
Health promotion is what my major was. Mhm.
Yes. So, at what point did you decide to take all of that, not only your passion for fitness and your passion for competing and your knowledge of training and nutrition to, your for yourself, but also when did you decide to take that to the competition prep world?
Yeah. So it kind of just took off, to be honest. I was a personal trainer. I was a manager in gyms, fitness manager for a while after I graduated. Then this was, I kind of had some online clients. That was how it started. I took on a few online clients, just people I knew in the area, working with them. I just because I enjoyed it. And then this was right before I turned pro. Actually, I can remember. I had built up my clients a good amount, and I had kind of told them, I said, y'all, I'm going to be quitting my job soon, so just basically bear with me. So I can remember right before I left for Miami, a few weeks, I quit my job at the gym, and I kind of didn't have a plan B. Because I knew if I turned pro, that would really, really help my coaching career. I wanted to make
Mm-hmm.
that full time, having online clients and do more coaching. So I knew that would really help. So I kind of didn't have a plan B. I just said, Katie, you're coming back from Miami a pro. So, I quit my job. Um, and then I did.
That's
So
amazing,
I
by the
turned
way.
pro. Yes. And it feels like yesterday, which is crazy. Um, But yeah, so then that really helped it as well. It kind of just took off from there. I started just getting more and more clients. Um, then I started my own business. So it's, started my own LLC. It's Katie Kopfle LLC. um, and then the posing kind of came along with that. Like, I'm not exactly sure even how that really took off so much, but I just started posing with girls, mainly in the area. Um, and then it just took off from there and got more and more. And I really put a lot of focus into that. Um, and then I started doing more. I did mainly lifestyle at first, and then I started doing more competition. I remember my very first competition prep. If Tiffany is listening, she's my
Aw.
first prep client. I still work with her. Um, and then it just took off from there. Yeah, and just word of mouth. And one of my favorite things is when people, I'll get messages or emails from girls, and they'll say, I was asking around, and I heard great things of you as a coach and want to work with you. So that's my favorite because that
Mm,
kind of lets me know I'm doing something right.
yeah.
Um, I think that's the best form of marketing, just from a business perspective. That's the best form of marketing is word of mouth. And when your clients are happy, then they tell people. So
Yeah.
that just makes me really happy when I see stuff like that. But yeah, that's kind of how it got started, and it took off from there. And my posing really has taken off. So I put a lot of focus into that too. So I do a lot of in the area, but then I also do online, the FaceTime as well with that.
That's so cool. And it's especially cool because like it's amazing how our passions can turn into these much bigger missions just from the
Mhm.
consistent, constant growth. Like this happened and there was a good experience, and this happened, there was a good experience, or this person reached out to me. Like it just almost is very natural. Like it doesn't have to be forced.
Mhm.
No one's like, it's not like a job. It really isn't. It's
It's
amazing.
not. I kind of still have to pinch myself. Like
Yeah.
I'll be. It's funny when I'm like doing my fasted cardio in the morning. The gym that I go to is uptown, and I always see business people walking to work and business ladies, and they just look miserable, like going into work. And I kind of have to push myself, like this is my job, is
Hmm.
coaching people for a living and just doing what I love, and promoting my business. Like it's just crazy that I'm able to do all these things and travel and help people. And it does not feel like a job. Like you said, it kind of was just a natural progression, and it's something that I can remember even prepping for my first show. This was my dream, was to do this. And I always said, I remember working for gyms, and I hated it because it was such
Hmm.
like a male ego kind of run thing. They didn't treat you well. They talked down to you, especially being one of the only females. And I always said I would work for myself. I don't want to work for anybody. I want to be able to do what I want to do. I know I'm good at it. So it kind of was just a natural, like you said, things happen and allow the next thing to happen. And it kind
Hmm.
of is just a journey, and you have to let it doesn't happen overnight. It's not like you can say, okay,
That'd be
I
nice.
want, right. You can't necessarily plan. Like, yes, you need to make things happen and go out there and work for what you want, but you can't have a set plan day by day in place of a timeline of what exactly will happen because you don't know. I couldn't even tell you 6 months ago where I would be at and all the things that have happened and have helped to get to the next step, good and bad things. So I think it's just is all part of your journey that gets you to exactly where you're supposed to be. And it's always a learning, we're always learning and growing, making mistakes, and that just all adds up to our journey.
It does. Oh, I love that. It just hits home for
I'm
me. It really does. I feel the
getting
same
deep on
way.
you.
Yeah, no, it's for real. Like you can't plan for everything to go the way it goes, and it sometimes it's really surprising the way that it goes too. And
Yes.
there's things I look back on, I'm like, that's why I went through that, or that's why I started this,
Uh-huh.
or that's why it had to happen at this time. Like
Yeah.
me and my boyfriend will
Hmm.
talk sometimes and we'll be like, oh my gosh, like how crazy is it that if I wasn't willing to do my thing or to pivot at certain moments in my life, that I wouldn't be where I am. And
Right. That just gave me goosebumps.
ooh, I love it when that happens. And it's true, because there's certain things that we'll do or we'll face in our life, and we don't know that it's taking us to like the best thing ever, the thing we didn't
Or
even
certain
know.
people that you meet that
Yep.
don't at that you don't think that it's a good thing at the time, or people that are leaving your life that you don't think is a good thing, and it turns out to be the best thing that
True.
could have happened, and it's just preparing you for something greater that you couldn't see at the time. Yeah, it's everything is connected, and it's a lot, like you said, lots of things have happened to me that have made me realize that, and it really has changed my mindset and changed my outlook. So when things do happen, like for instance, that all the health, the health stuff I went through,
Mm,
it really made me appreciate every single, when I finally was able to go back in the gym, I seriously never appreciated it more. Like it just
mm,
it makes you realize when you're taking things for granted, and it kind of just, it was a blessing in disguise. And I think a lot of things, if we allow ourselves to think that way, so many things in our life we could look at as blessings in disguise if we just open our eyes to looking at it that way.
yeah, and allowing it to be that, like not trying to force it to go the way you thought it was gonna go
Right.
or should go, but being like, okay, I trust that this is gonna be fine. And I know like running a business is tough sometimes. It can be really like taxing because you're doing every part of it. I mean, obviously you can hire people and bring on more people to your team, and that's a good thing to do. But there are times in your business where it's just all you. It's all on you. You're the coach. You're the
Mhm.
you're the marketer. You're the person who's doing customer service. Like so much goes into it,
Yeah.
and I always think like I look back and I'm like, okay, there was a point in my life where I was a virtual assistant, and that's how I learned how to podcast. Like no one would have prepared me to know that I was going to do my own podcast
Wow.
for this,
Yeah.
and then like when I started this podcast, I had no idea it was going to turn into like well, I mean, I didn't know it was going to be what made me realize I wanted to work with bikini competitors, like, and so
Mhm.
it all just kind of evolves on its own if we let it. Like we have to be detached from the how. Like we can see a vision, we can know that we're going to get there, we can be so what do I want to say, like we can believe so deeply in ourselves that it's going to happen, we're going to get there, we're going to find a way to make sure that we are able to, like you said, work for yourself, not have to deal with what you were dealing with. You can have that clear vision in mind, but imagine if you were so committed to the how that you didn't get to see how it was really supposed to unfold the whole time or allow it to unfold on its own. So it's important to just really be detached from that outcome and allow ourselves to just like, okay, every step is a step in the right direction, and some things are going to come up in my way, and that's fine. But I know that it's for a reason, and it's going to take me to where I need to be, probably more safely and securely than any other way I could have
Yes.
imagined.
I love that so much. And we can't always see, yes, we can have a vision, but we can't always see the actual true vision or how great it's going to be. So how are we supposed to know how to get there?
Yeah.
Um, so I think we kind of just have to let things happen, and the bad things. If everything went as planned perfectly and nothing bad happened to us, we didn't have to work hard for it. It just fell in our lap. We wouldn't appreciate it as much. I
Mm-hmm.
think when you go through hard times and you go through struggles in your life, it teaches you to really appreciate the good times, and the good times are that much sweeter because you've gone through those rough times.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm grateful for all of them. And at the time, it's hard to see, but when you open your eyes and your mind to looking at it as, okay, this is happening. It sucks right now, but it is going to be something greater. It's happening for a reason. I'm a huge believer that everything happens for a reason, and every person's in your life for a reason, whether good or bad, or to teach you something, or to force you to kind of grow in some way. I'm a big believer in that. So I think when we change our mindset to that, it allows us to enjoy that journey of getting to where we want to be more. We're not
Mm-hmm.
so focused on everything needs to go perfectly, because it's not going to. You ask you ask any successful person and they tell you it was filled with so many, um, struggles and just rough times and tears and sweat. And I think all of those added up, though, are what makes it such a sweet moment at the end when you do get there.
Yeah. Like you said, though, you have to choose to see it that way and
Hmm.
continue to choose
It's
to
kind
see
of
it
like
that way.
it's kind of like a prep. Like when you're prepping and it sucks and it's hard and and there's tears and there's blood and there's sweat. But at the end of it, and you get there and you're so proud of yourself for doing it and you made it, it just looking back, you really appreciate those times because they made you stronger.
Mm.
And they just got you to where you wanted to be in the first place. So, yeah, just appreciate all of those times.
I love that. I love everything about where that whole conversation went. That was so awesome. I'm so glad that that even happened and that people were able to
Hmm.
hear that. And I know you had shared your advice for people who come to you, especially the newbies, which is do not compare yourself. But I do want to open the
Mm.
floor and ask you, like, what is your best advice for competitors who are going after their pro card?
So, I think my biggest advice is just enjoy the journey, which sounds very cliche, but I think we chase so many things. It's like you always hear they're chasing the pro card.
Mhm.
And then once you turn pro, then you start competing in pro shows. Then they're chasing Olympia points. And it's like, all right, well that's all fine and good, but then what? What are you doing it for? It's like there's always gonna be more. There's always, once you turn pro, okay, then what? Um, you kind of have to just enjoy the whole process of it and really figure out why you're doing it in the first place. And I think when you do that and you take out, obviously it's such a cool moment turning pro, and I'll never forget it. And then you're a pro for life. Nobody can take that away from you. But then it's kind of like people, I don't know. It's like this goal that so many people have their eyes on and they don't even know why. Same thing with
Mm.
Olympia. It's like obviously Olympia is, you're the best in the world. That would be amazing to be there. But it's kind of like why? What's your goal? What's your purpose in getting those chasing those Olympia points? It's kind of like, for me, my whole mindset, it changed everything for me when I decided, okay, I'm prepping for myself. If I placed dead last, I would be completely happy because of the whole journey. And I know I put in the work and it's teaching me about myself and it's teaching me how to be strong. And if I do well, then that's great. If I make it to Olympia, that's great. And I will, I'll obviously will work. That's everybody's goal, is to win and to be competitive. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like a hamster wheel. If you're constantly chasing those points and you're chasing a placing, you're never going to be happy because there's always more and more and more after that. So you kind of have to figure out your why, and why do you want to turn pro? Um, why do you want to make it to Olympia? At least that's my opinion.
Mm.
Um, so just enjoy the whole process of it, because for some people it is a very long process, unfortunately. I know some girls, um, they've done, it seems like close to 10 national shows, even the last couple years, to try and turn pro, just show after show, because it is so competitive now. There's so
Mhm.
many girls, and it's like the level, the caliber goes up every single show. So it makes it tougher, and for some girls, that's a very long process. So I think you really just need to figure out why you're doing it in the first place. And then that makes it more enjoyable. Then that makes it,
Mhm.
you're able to do more of those shows and you're able to still compete. Whereas if you're just chasing your pro card and then say you don't get it at one show, then you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't get it again. I have to do another national show. It's like, well, no, you don't. You have to figure out why you want to turn pro in the first place.
Yeah. Mm. I really, really like all of that. It's true. Like there's got to be something beyond the external
Right.
validation.
hmm Yeah,
Mm.
and I think we're always obviously going in to be our best and to win. That's my goal. But it's kind of everything else that comes with competing. Obviously, as a coach, this helps my business. This allows me to do what I love, travel the world. But I kind of had to change my mindset. Like, okay, Katie, you have to go in being okay with placing first or being okay with placing last. You
Yeah.
really have to, because especially in the pro shows, you don't know. You can place,
Hmm.
I know of pros who they won a show next weekend, they placed third call out.
Hmm.
And sometimes they get upset, and I'm like, that's just how the sport is. That's just what happens. So you really have to be okay with that. And you have to have a bigger why than just, I want to win. I want to turn pro.
Yes.
I want to I want to get 3 Olympia points, whatever the case is. I think you need to have a bigger why than that to keep you going.
Mm. I absolutely agree. And something I think about too is like the aspect of competing and stepping on stage should not be what drives you having this lifestyle or achieving new
Mhm.
things for yourself throughout a prep. Like imagine if a prep was non-existent, if there was no shows, no competing at all. Like there's more, like there are reasons you'd be living this lifestyle outside of stepping on a stage. So I remember, like, if I ever found myself getting caught up in that chase, I'd be like, it's just another Saturday. It's just another
Yeah.
Saturday, right? Because I
Yeah.
would do it anyway. So putting on heels and a bikini and awesome like look and stepping on stage and strutting all of that, it's like, okay, well tomorrow, Sunday, I'm still going to be doing what I love, which is eating foods that make me feel good and going to the gym. So there's got to be something
Exactly.
throughout that, like you said, that makes it all worth it, really.
Yes, I love that. Just another Saturday.
It is just another Saturday,
Yeah.
especially if you're going from show to show to show. We're getting so caught up in
Mhm.
that, because there's so many things that we find enjoyable. At least what I found is like I'll be prepping and I'll be like, wow, I'm loving this. I see a new line. I see this. I'll like
Mhm.
just be loving that, and then I'm like, wow, like, but there's always going to be like a new line when you're prepping. So what else is there to be excited about? How about the fact that like I'm still getting all my water in, or I'm still feeling excited when I
Mhm.
wake up, or I have a reason to wake up in the morning beyond going to the gym. Like I have amazing clients I'm working with. I have a mission that the world needs to hear. And I mean, I don't know, you're just making me think a lot.
Right. For sure. Yeah. And one of my favorite things is when I have either clients or I'll be posing with girls, and it's usually it's first time competitors, but they're so excited to just to be there, like just to be at the show, to meet people, they'll say, I just want to experience it, whatever happens. And you can tell, and those are usually the ones that end up doing very well. And they're
Yeah.
not nervous. They're just like, yeah, they just are like, they're enjoying the whole experience. And you can tell that they would love it, whether there was a show or not, whether they placed first or last. It's kind of like, they enjoyed the whole process, and really they're doing it. Whether they do another show, they might just do the one. Um, they really are doing it because they wanted to prove something to themselves. Like, I just love that more than anything. When girls, you can tell that the reasons they're doing this, because it's so easy for girls to do a show. They want to lose weight or whatever. They want to look. They're tired of being in off season and tired of being fluffy, and they just want to prep. Like, I hear that a lot. I hear, oh, I just want to prep already. I just want to be stage lean already. And, obviously we're the grass is always greener, and sometimes we're wishing that we were leaner or whatever. But if you're going to do it for that reason, and you're always rushing into shows because you just don't like having some extra weight on you, or you just want to look shredded, it's kind of, you need to reevaluate. So I just love when I hear that from girls and they're just truly enjoying the whole experience of it.
Yes. can't be empty. It can't be empty. There's no reason to do it. Like literally I'm been discussing like cutting with my coach again and like preparing to step
Mhm.
on stage next year. And this is like I'm in a place where I'm like,
Yay.
thank you. I'm so excited.
You are. I'm
um,
here for you.
thank you. But it's like exactly what you said though. In my head, I'm like, this is different. Like this time I'm not doing it because I want to see my body change. I'm perfectly happy where I am. I could be here for the rest of my life and be
Exactly.
satisfied. So now I
And
know, like,
that's how
yep.
you know, right, that it's time to prep. And that's actually something I tell girls. That's a good indicator of how you know you're ready to start a prep is when you, and this took me a while even. It takes a while when you're
Mm-hmm.
truly comfortable with yourself in your off season, or when you're not prepping and you're putting on the weight and you're reverse dieting and you're trying to get your hormones back or whatever is trying to get in a good spot. When you are, I know people will say that they're really okay with themselves and and they're
They're
not.
not.
But when you're truly at peace and you're truly okay with the way that you look and you feel and you're training hard and you're feeling good, that's when you know you're ready to start a prep. And then a lot of times girls like the way they're feeling so much they don't even, they're like, oh, I want to keep this going.
Yeah.
I want to keep on seeing how strong I can get. I want to keep building muscle, and that's great. You know, nobody's forcing you to prep. So I think that's a
True.
great indicator that you're mentally, physically there.
Yeah, totally. Because it's not, it's literally like doing it for the reasons beyond the body itself.
Exactly.
And also
Mhm.
I think like it helps to establish a different lifestyle pattern. Like you go into it thinking like it's just again, it's just part of my life. It's not like I'm in a prep now, like you said earlier, like 12 weeks, or whatever it might be. Instead it's
Right.
like I'm easing into this. I'll step on stage when it feels right or when I'm ready or when, me and
Mhm.
my coach decide. But, if my body goes a different way, okay, I will listen. If it doesn't,
For
okay,
sure.
let's keep going. So
Yeah.
I think taking time off also allows us to build that patience and understanding for ourselves and awareness of like, oh, the sport isn't actually like you said earlier, like when you're on a roll and you're like, I will do anything, then you take that
Mhm.
time
You do,
off
you
and you're
get that
like,
like tunnel vision.
yep. And then you take time off and you're like, it's not just about the stage. Like, wait, what happened?
Right.
There's
And I think it
more.
allows you, that's the other good thing about time off is just letting yourself and your body and your mind be, and you kind of you gain focus again, and you can see more clear. Like I think a lot of girls want to prep and do all these shows just to stay relevant.
Yeah.
Um, and they think, oh, if I'm not prepping for a show, then I'm out of this world. And I'm just like, I feel so out of the loop, and I'm almost like it's prep FOMO, and you just like fear of missing out, and you're just, it's almost like they need that to stay relevant. Whereas I think it's healthy to do other things and get outside interest, because it is very, very easy, even myself, to get so caught up in this sport and competing in it, especially when it's your career, like it is mine. It is very easy to get caught up in that. So I think it's good to kind of be able to see more clear when you're not prepping and you can develop your interest outside of this sport, and you're not so focused on such strict guidelines with your prep or your fitness goals. You can kind of just let your body do what it wants to do and enjoy other things. So I think that's another plus of off season is people need to experience that to have a clear mind, and know what they really want.
And the way you said that too, like they prep to stay relevant, I was like, that hit home because like when I was going
Yes, it's
into
and I've been there. Mhm.
yeah, when you go from I'm gonna keep going, keep going, keep going to all of a sudden I'm gonna stop, you're like, are the judges gonna forget me? Will my
Right.
will my placings mean nothing anymore? Are people still gonna want to follow my
Yeah.
journey? It's like so
Am I
dumb.
instantly gonna have 20,000 less followers?
Yeah,
Like, yeah,
exactly.
it's almost like you have a fear of missing out or a fear of not being in the loop anymore.
That community
And I'm sure
survival
a
gets
lot of
threatened.
people, hmm and I think when that happens, that's when maybe you do need to take a step back and reevaluate your reasons for doing it in the first place. Are you doing it for fun? Are you doing it because you want to, or are you doing it because other people are, and because you want to keep up this image, or you want to look a certain way to people?
Yeah, where's that drive really coming from?
Mhm.
I love that. No, seriously, I've loved this whole conversation because I feel like we've just been in total flow. I'm like, usually I
I
end it after that
know.
question, but I'm just like, this is so good.
Yeah, no, I swear I could talk about this stuff forever. It's just
I
like,
know, right?
I love everything about this sport, and I just have such passion for it, and it's just I could talk about it forever. So
It's obvious. It's obvious that you're passionate about it and that you truly care about the sport, about your athletes, and about the work you're doing. So I see that in you and I appreciate that. And I want others to be able to connect with you, work with you even, and at least, thank you for coming on the show as well. So can you let everybody know where they can do all those things?
yes. So my Instagram is just Katie Kopfle. My website is katiekopfle.com. That's where, all of my coaching programs are. So I do competition prep. I do lifestyle coaching. I do posing coaching. I'm a posing coach. So yeah, my email is on there as well, but all of my programs are on my website. So any of those.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And to everybody listening, please let her know, how awesome this episode was. Maybe tag us with your main takeaways or post about it on your story. I always love seeing that, especially when you're doing your cardio or just when you're
Mhm.
driving long distances or to work. It's just I love that. It's so amazing. So I appreciate everybody who does post about it, who does share it, who does support the athletes as well, because for a lot of us, this is our life. This is, like for Katie, this is her career. So it's amazing when we can support others in that. So I really appreciate all of you guys for listening, and I do hope that you have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this episode. Just make it awesome.